I didn't plan to make this video, I was just browsing through some recent finds. Nothing special at first glance. Caves, figurines, strange tools, as usual. But the more I looked into it, the more I felt that these things didn't fit into the usual story. Somewhere the sizes are off, somewhere the material is too well preserved, and sometimes it's not even clear why it was made at all. More details make the overall picture more interesting. I put them all together in one episode to calmly show what we know about the past and what still remains unclear. Hi, my friend, you're on the Kurtop channel. Monster burrows exist in South America with thousands of tunnels. Some are as small as animal passages, while others are massive, 4 meters wide and stretch for hundreds of meters. Who dug them? Water and lava are ruled out. Geologists all agree it's not natural. Grooves on the walls look like claw marks. In one Argentine cave, they found the answer. 2 giant sloth skeletons, each weighed about 4 tons, with claws up to 20 centimeters long, requiring tunnels of that size. It is believed that they dug burrows for generations to raise their offspring and to shelter from the glacial climate. The narrower passages could have been made by ancient giant armadillos, whose modern relatives also dig, but on a smaller scale. This raises another question: what else might lie beneath us if such tunnels were dug by animals, not humans? A sword for the immortals. Watch. Made for a soldier's hand and a greater purpose, it dates to the Warring States period, 5th, 3rd centuries before Christ, an era of war, betrayal, and major reforms. But this sword stands out from the context. It speaks of ritual. It could have been used in sacrifices, in rites of passage, or as a symbol of power that must not be held, but proven. It's exactly these kinds of artifacts that are confusing because they don't match our idea of the ancient world. We expect rough blades and traces of battles, but instead we get crystals. Steel, gold, and metal are crafted like jewelry. Desert Castle. Amid the Algerian dunes stands a ruin, isolated, nameless, and roadless. Tourists never visit, and few satellite images exist. The place is called Kasar, but that's not official. Kasar means palace or castle in Berber, and Dra is the name of a river that once flowed nearby. No one knows who built this castle. There are no precise dates or settlement remains, just stone outlines in the sand. It seems the structure was cut from time and forgotten. It's amazing that even in the era of drone geolocation and expeditions, there are still places that almost no one has heard of. And perhaps it's these kinds of ruins that are the most important because they don't fit into the usual picture of Mogila, Mogila. In the north of Morocco, where the Tangier Peninsula faces Gibraltar, archaeologists discovered more than a cemetery. They uncovered a full ritual map. 3 ancient necropolises, stone box burials, standing stones, geometric signs, and caves with wall paintings. All this is in a region rarely discussed by archaeologists before. One of the graves was accurately dated to 2000 before Christ. This is a shield, a rectangular niche carved in stone with slabs on top. The work was hard and time-consuming, all to bury the body in a very specific way. But why? On the walls nearby there are bidriangles, patterns made of 8 triangles superimposed on each other. They are sometimes seen as female figures or goddess symbols. There are also circles with dots, waves, and lined squares. All of this resembles a picture encrypted in stone, but we still don't understand the language of this picture. Standing stones are all around, some taller than a person. They could have served as boundaries or places of power. Perhaps right here. Here, ancient people gathered to bury, pray, or commemorate thousands of years ago. Skulls with nails. In southeast Spain, archaeologists discovered 7 severed heads with large metal nails in some, among ancient settlement ruins. An unsettling find. Not through, but forcefully, as if the skulls were nailed to something. But why? Initially, they believed these were war trophies, such as enemy heads displayed to intimidate. But chemical tests on the bones showed some skulls weren't from outsiders. In one of the cities, 3 out of 4 heads belonged to people who came from far away. But in another, almost all of them turned out to be locals. And this changes everything. In one place, strangers were executed and displayed, while in another, ancestors were kept as relics. The heads were found inside homes, making this about memory and respect, not a show of power. The Greeks wrote that the Gauls kept the heads of their enemies in boxes, while Spanish mercenaries carried them on spears. But things were actually more complicated. A lost civilization. On one of the plateaus of western India, far from cities and tourist routes, archaeologists discovered petroglyphs that, according to preliminary estimates, are more than 12,000 years old. They are carved directly onto the stone surface. The figures are strange, like stylized people with elongated bodies, heads, and arms, which resemble something else entirely. Some images directly parallel Sumerian mythology and the Inca civilization. A similar image appears on seals from Mesopotamia, where it's seen as a celestial mediator between worlds. Then, the same silhouette suddenly appears on the Indian plateau, thousands of kilometers away. Scientists remain cautious, calling it a coincidence of forms and saying we can't yet speak of a single culture. But there is another point of view. Perhaps these images are the last trace of a civilization we know nothing about at all, one that existed long before writing, before the Vedas, before the Indus culture. Its traces survive only on stone. More questions than answers remain. Who carved them? What do they mean? Why are they so much like images from other ancient places? And how did it happen that these signs were literally underfoot, but almost no one knew about them? A dam not from those times. On the Vinalopó River near the Spanish city of Elche, there is a stone dam that for a long time was considered a construction from the Islamic period. It seemed unusual. A massive structure at the mouth, thick walls, traces of canals. Everything fit the usual chronology. A new study using optically stimulated luminescence completely changed the picture. It turned out that this structure is 1,000 years older than the previously assumed date and was built at the end of the 1st century before Christ, during the Roman Empire. The dam, more than 130 meters long and 4 meters high, was not just part of the landscape, but a key element of Elche's Roman hydraulic system. It functioned not only as a flow regulator, but was probably also used for irrigating the surrounding lands. It wasn't separate, but integrated into a well-designed, logical, practical engineering network. No cults, inscriptions, or myths here, just calculation, geometry, and clear knowledge of the terrain. The dam was not built for beauty. It was not decorated with bas-reliefs or included in legends. It was built to stand, to let water flow where it was needed, to serve the city. And it still works to this day. Over 2,000 years, civilizations and languages have changed, yet the dam still stands. The Guardian from Mojo. In the highlands of Peru, in the Mojo region, there stands a stone statue. It's not very tall, and it looks simple, but nevertheless it gives off a strange feeling. At first glance, it's a Tiwanaku-style carved monolith, clear lines, static pose, hands folded on the stomach. But the longer you look, the more the figure stands out from its context, as if it came from another time or even another continent. The statue, called Mojo Waka, has a cross-shaped base resembling the ancient Andean Chicana symbol. Each side represents a world level, upper, middle, and lower. Here the cross spirals clockwise, a rare feature that may suggest a lost ritual meaning. However, the main attraction isn't the style or symbolism, but the unusual similarities. The pose, the statue, her hands lowered and folded on her stomach, the direct gaze. All of this unexpectedly echoes the images of the Moai from Easter Island, and even earlier, the stone stele from Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Same composition, gestures, and restraint, completely different cultures, separated by thousands of kilometers and centuries, but as if they are using the same language of form. A room affected high in the Andes at the ancient Chavin de Huantar complex. Archaeologists found a room they weren't meant to discover. It was fully buried, no entrances or windows, only a narrow passage. It was as if someone had intentionally concealed this space. Inside were 23 artifacts. All are related to psychoactive substance use. Some are sharp, perfectly crafted tubes made from thin, hollow bird bones. The research found traces of tobacco and dimethyltryptamine, a sanctioned substance, and this is where the questions begin. What was the purpose of this small dark room with inhalation tubes? Why was it isolated? Why was it built in such a way that it would be hidden forever? One of the authors of the study says this is not spontaneous shamanism. This is a ritual that is strictly controlled and formalized. Maybe it wasn't meant for everyone. Only the elite, like priests or rulers, likely had access to these practices, because hallucinations here are not just a journey inside oneself. They are a mechanism of power. A small room, 2 or 3 people, darkness, and a hallucinogen that changes the perception of reality. These conditions could lead to contact with gods, trances, and visions. And while people usually believe that priests really talk to spirits, the priests could use this as a tool both for control and for management. A faceless figure. In the Damjali cave in Azerbaijan, archaeologists found a tiny sandstone figurine just 5 centimeters long. The details are impressively precise. The hairstyle, belt, and clothing are there, but the face, gender, and expression are absent. Only a reserved pose and sense of form remain. This artifact is about 9,000 years old. It's the first human figurine from the Mesolithic period found in the South Caucasus. Its value lies not in being first, but simply in existing. In a place without pottery, someone was already carving human figures. Scientists think the figurine is from a transitional era when nomads settled and developed rituals, memory, and symbols, not just dwellings. The Neolithic period arrived gradually through changes like this, quietly and almost unnoticed. Africa, in Israel. In the south of Israel, in the Negev desert, archaeologists studied the Tel Malhata Hill, one of the places associated with the biblical city of Malada. Among the 6th century finds next to Christian burials, they discovered something unexpected. 5 hand-carved figurines made of ebony. The material is Ceylon ebony, found only in southern India and Sri Lanka. That's mysterious, but the faces are even more surprising. The figurines show male and female torsos with expressive features, broad cheekbones, flat noses, and high foreheads. Researchers are convinced that these images have African features. On their heads are massive headdresses with holes in them, possibly to wear the figurines as pendants or amulets. The burials themselves are Christian. Nearby were glass vessels, jewelry made of bronze and stone, and alabaster items. And among all this, there are figurines that clearly come from another culture and another world. This isn't just a trade item. It held significance. Perhaps these were images of ancestors, maybe symbols of the homeland, which were preserved even after converting to a new faith. Byzantine Palestine was a crossroads for caravans, ships, and merchants from Africa, Arabia, and India. These figurines may have traveled hundreds of miles, passed through many hands, and ended up here among the tombstones. This is a rare find for archaeologists. It shows how deeply and intricately cultures were intermingled. Gods from the underground. In ancient Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire, archaeologists discovered a monumental relief buried before the northern palace throne room entrance. The slab is almost 6 meters long, 3 meters high, and weighs about 12 tons. The image is strikingly detailed. At the center stands King Ashurbanipal, flanked by the supreme god Abshur and the patron goddess Ishtar. Strange figures stand behind them. One looks like a man with a fish body, another with raised hands might be a scorpion man. This scene shows power, not submission. The king is depicted not as an ordinary ruler, but as a link between the world of people and the gods. But the main point is something else. The relief was not destroyed. It was carefully buried. It wasn't thrown away or broken, but specifically hidden. This is done either to preserve something or to make sure no one ever sees it again. This happened after the fall of Assyria, most likely during the Hellenistic period. That's odd. since these halls were already known in the 19th century. The British took many reliefs from there, but this one stayed. Maybe no one knew where to look, or maybe that's how it was meant to be. The relief was in the palace's main area, directly across from the entrance, the most important and visible spot, and then silence for 2,000 years. A Stone Age axe follows. During excavations in southern Denmark at Redbrukoven, archaeologists found an item that is rarely seen in such condition: a stone axe completely preserved together with its wooden handle. The find is about 5,500 years old, and it is its condition that makes it unique. In peat soil, rich in moisture and organic matter, the wood did not decay but appeared preserved. This isn't an abstract archaeological object or rare artifact, but a real tool once used for construction, hunting, and daily life. The curved handle, attachment shape, and wear marks all remain unchanged. This tells us not about a symbol, but about the person who owned this axe, carried it, maybe inherited it, and then lost or left it, where it lay buried for thousands of years. Finds like these matter not just for their rarity, but because they let us experience antiquity as a continuation, not just an abstraction. Between those who held this axe and us, there is nothing but time. Continent underwater. Archaeologists discovered something unexpected at the bottom of the Madura Strait near Java. Not a sunken ship or artifacts, but a whole ecosystem. Earth layers preserving Homo erectus remains, skull fragments, and 140,000-year-old life traces. Along with them were the bones of giant bulls, turtle shells, and traces of bones broken to extract bone marrow. This is not just an ancient human site. It's a fragment of a submerged continent, a vanished world that once connected the islands with. Scientists call it Sundaland. Now underwater, it was once plains, similar to an Asian savanna with rivers, forests, and large animal herds. On the animal bones, archaeologists found traces of processing, just like those made by continental Homo erectus. Previously, it was thought Javanese groups lacked these skills. It's now clear the populations had contact and exchanged culture. People exchanged hunting, butchering, and shell processing techniques. This speaks not only about technique, but also about memory, about the operation of knowledge transfer. Besides traces of hunting, they found remains of mollusks and river sharks. Evidence suggests a once rich, complex landscape here with humans in the ecosystem. Now it all lies at the bottom. Sundaland submerged tens of thousands of years ago, silently vanishing without any trace of cities or temples. And if it weren't for the occasional finds on the seafloor, we wouldn't even know it existed. It shows that large parts of history can vanish over time, not just from disaster. All that's left is a bone fragment cooled in Vila. The Neolithic Swiss Army knife. Archaeologists discovered a rare Neolithic knife with a wooden handle in the Wangen-Hinterhorn area on the Germany-Switzerland border. Length, 7.3 centimeters. The blade is made of flint. The wooden handle is fixed with birch resin, and there is a hole on the side for carrying. The whole construction resembles something like an ancient multi-tool. And indeed, the find has already been called the first Swiss knife in history. The tool dates to the Neolithic era, about 4,300 to 3,500 years before our era. It was discovered at a Finn culture settlement, a society that lived near swamps and lakes in present-day southern Germany and northern Switzerland. People here built pile dwellings, farmed, raised livestock, used copper, and knew about fabric. The Wangen knife is simple, yet captures its era's convenience, reliability, and versatility. This is not a ceremonial item, not a weapon, not an ornament. It's a tool that was used every day, and it's exactly these kinds of finds that are important. Traces in the stone. In 1952 in Texas, in the bed of the Paluxy River, workers were clearing stone and came across a chain of clear footprints. These were dinosaur tracks, large, elongated, and nearly a meter long in some spots. There were many. It seemed that ancient reptiles really did pass through this place, one after another leaving a trail in the stone. But nearby, they spotted something odd, long, human-like footprints with visible toes. Some overlapped the dinosaur tracks, which is why this place became debated. Some people saw the discovery as a sensation, claiming it was proof that humans and dinosaurs existed at the same time. Scientists were cautious, attributing the tracks' shape to erosion or calling them fakes. There are known cases when similar human footprints were carved directly into limestone to later be sold to tourists. No clear explanation exists yet. Despite the debates, the scene records movements from 100 million years ago, and that's already quite amazing. Viking and the Cross. In southern Sweden, not far from the city of Linköping, archaeologists explored an old quarry, a usual spot where discoveries are unexpected. Atop the hill, among the stones, they found a strange structure, a solitary burial. A circle of tightly placed stones surrounded a stone coffin at the center, standing high and apart, overlooking the plain, as if the one inside was meant to watch even after death. The coffin is from the 10th century when Sweden stood between two worlds. Pagan traditions remain strong, but Christianity is beginning to influence people's lives. This burial reflects that change. Inside lay a person with an axe and a knife and remnants of fabric, probably from a ritual act. Everything suggests that he was from the upper echelons of society, perhaps a warrior, perhaps a member of the nobility. But the way the coffin itself was arranged is no longer a Scandinavian tradition. The stone lining, the orientation, the location on top of the hill, all of this is already under the influence of Christian symbolism. Such hybrid burials are rare. Most are either completely pagan or already follow all the rules of the new religion. Here, however, there is a transition, a mixing of rituals. The last pagans still bury with weapons, but they now look to the cross or at least recognize changing times. He died between eras, no longer believing in Thor like his ancestors, nor accepting Christ as future generations would. Stone cubes. Not far from Albuquerque in New Mexico, a group of tourists walked out to the edge of the canyon. At first, it seems like a normal rock formation, but the longer you stare, the more it feels off. The cliff edges are perfectly straight, and the faces smooth, as if cut by something sharp, not time. In some areas, the stone blocks form clear cubes, each weighing about 100 tons. There are no signs of processing, yet it's not natural chaos either. Everything is too geometric. Comparisons immediately started online. Some people remembered the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, mysterious stone slabs going underwater. Others mentioned the megaliths of Baalbek. But still, the main reaction is the same. It looks wrong. It's too perfect to be natural, too massive to be man-made. Scientists can explain much, weathering, crystal geometry, pressure, faults, but visually, it's unconvincing. Because when you stand next to these shapes, you don't get the feeling that nature made them. The question arises, if this is really artificial, then who did it and why? This isn't the first or last time nature appears to unintentionally mimic someone's work. Sometimes, though, it's suspected that it's actually technology imitating nature. We still don't know who was here before us. A footprint in the sea. In the Adriatic Sea lies a tiny 0.14 square kilometer uninhabited island. It has no docks, buildings, or paths, just stones. But if you look at it from above, you see something that can't be seen from the ground. The island is covered with kilometers of stone walls that twist, intersect, and form loops, circles, and lines, resembling a giant fingerprint. The island is called Baljanats. Several centuries ago, farmers from the neighboring island of Capria came here. They planted grapevines and olive trees, and by hand, stone by stone, they built protective walls against the wind. Without cement, without machinery, only the strength of their hands and patience. Even the numbers are impressive. An island, 1.5 kilometers long, has 23 kilometers of walls. Across the Šibenik archipelago, about 100 kilometers of hand-built walls exist. Today, these walls are protected by United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization as a monument to human labor. No one lives on Baljanak. The walls remain, but the people are gone. A sword without time. In 1965, archaeologists in Hubei province opened a flooded tomb and found a sword that had been underwater for about 2,500 years. It was in a wooden scabbard without any conservation or protection, yet it looked as if it had been made recently. The blade was shiny, had a clear pattern, and sliced paper like a razor. The surface bore an engraving of the owner's name, Gujian, King of Yue. This sword isn't just a weapon, its precise craftsmanship is hard to describe. The alloy, polish, and scabbard fit were all top-notch. But the main thing is that it survived centuries of war and complete oblivion and remained intact. Scientists still aren't sure how that's possible, but the very fact that such an item has reached us in working condition is a discovery. This sword reminds us that objects can preserve history better than words. Engineer from the future. In 1961, a professor searching Sibiu's military archives in Romania accidentally found a manuscript. Amid tables and calculations were odd diagrams, not crossbows or cannons, but multi-stage rockets, nozzle stabilizers, and fuel references. Everything resembled 20th century technical documentation, yet the document was made in the 16th century. The author was Conrad Haas, an artillery master at the Transylvanian court. He managed the barracks, created diagrams, and wrote concisely. His treatise was simply called How to Make a Good Rocket Capable of Lifting Itself into the Sky. Drawings, calculations, and rare explanations. Everything as if he was really trying to build something that did not yet exist at that time. Little is known about his life. He was born in 1509, was an engineer, did not take part in battles, but created weapons. At the manuscript's end, he wrote, "More peace, less war. Keep guns stored and avoid gunfire. The prince saves money, and the gunsmith keeps his life." This isn't a statement, just a quiet line at the page's bottom. Merlin's parchment. Archives often look boring. Dusty folders, invoices, names of long-forgotten people. That's how it was in Suffolk County in an Old English estate, an ordinary ledger from the 16th century. And suddenly, under the leather binding, an old French text with red and blue initials appears. The archivist stops. An investigation begins, leading to Britain's most mysterious legend, the story of Merlin and King Arthur. The parchment was a fragment of a 13th century manuscript, dating to the peak of Knights of the Round Table legends. This particular part is from the cycle suite Vulgate du Merlin, stories describing how Merlin acted after Arthur's coronation. Fewer than 40 such copies have survived, and each one is unique. But this one was sewn into the cover like trash because in the 16th century, old parchments were often used for book bindings. Paper was costly. Scholars couldn't handle the fragile find, so technology stepped in. Multispectral imaging exposed the faded ink, while X-rays, first used for fossils, helped view and examine inside the book. It became clear. This is a new, previously unknown scene. 2 episodes. First, Gevin battles pagan kings at Combinic. Second, at a feast, a blind harpist with a white dog and chants all requests to carry the standard in battle, then vanishes. Then it becomes clear that it was Merlin who changed the course of events. Magic, mask, legend. But that's not the main point. The main thing is that all of this could have remained just on the cover forever. A story written by monks. 700 years ago survived wars, generations, and near oblivion, resurfacing only when someone noticed an odd pattern on old leather. A castle beneath the asphalt. Archaeologists in central Moscow's Nikolskaya Street found a 17th century metal combination lock with 7 discs, featuring Latin letters and the initials M5. The lock was simple but neatly made. Who used it is unknown. Perhaps it was a travel chest or maybe a personal box. Nearby, bells made of non-ferrous metal were found in the remains of a burned building, dating to the late 16th or early 17th century. They were probably hidden before a raid or fire, as people do when unsure if they'll return. The bells lay well preserved in the corner on the ground. They also found a Turkish dish, cone and flower-shaped baking molds, and ornamented tiles, all everyday items. They came from different people, places, and eras, yet ended up in the same layer, all within the same city, beneath what we've long considered an ordinary street. A coin that looks like a medal. This isn't just money. This is a decadrachm, an ancient Greek coin worth 10 drachmas. It weighs about 43 grams, is nearly the size of a modern medal, and its significance is more like a medal than money. These coins weren't used in markets, but minted for special occasions, victories, gifts to gods, or remembrance. This image shows the nymph Arethusa with a laurel wreath, earrings, and a delicate necklace. 4 dolphins circle her, appearing to protect or move like waves near the shore. This coin was minted in Syracuse, where the cult of Arethusa was especially strong. Myth says the nymph escaped Alpheus, became an underground spring on Sicily's shore, near the sea, dolphins, and the city that celebrated its victory with beauty. Dicodrachms were rarely minted or used, mainly given as gifts kept or placed in graves. Few specimens remain today, and each is more than just an artifact. It's a silver memory, reminding us we were once closer to ritual than the market. Is the Master's Chest. In 1936, on the island of Gotland, a farmer lifted his plow and stumbled upon a wooden chest, bound with chains and locked. Inside, there was neither gold nor weapons. There were tools, more than 200 of them. Hammers, drills, chisels, awls, scissors, forged locks and hinges, all functional, undecorated, and clearly used. It's about 1,000 years old and belonged to a Viking-era craftsman. And what's especially interesting is that the shape of most of the items was almost identical to modern ones. Hammers with comfortable balance, scissors with springy handles, chisels sharp and precise. Many of them could be found in a modern carpenter's toolbox and wouldn't raise any questions. The chest was discovered at a former lake site. How it got there is unclear. It may have been hidden from a thief or quickly sunk while fleeing. Maybe the owner just never had time to come back, so the place was forgotten and the belongings stayed. Metal was costly then. Such a set was more than property. It embodied work, skill, and knowledge. This chest holds no legend or relic, only a life in one box. The gold of the Ptolemies. This diadem is more than 2,000 years old. It was created in Egypt during the Ptolemaic dynasty, a period that began right after the death of Alexander the Great. It likely belonged to a noble woman, a queen, priestess, or court heiress. The ornament is crafted from thin gold sheet. Its sides feature torch images, symbols of power and light. The center displays the Heracles knot, a Greco-Roman amulet linked to protection, healing, good fortune, and childbirth. On the diadem, it's part of the design, not an amulet. It's tied along the forehead with golden tassels hanging below. Originally, there were 8 of them, but 5 have survived. When the head moved, they swayed, reflecting the light. The carnelian, garnet, and pearl inlays are only visible up close. The ornament was made not for display, but to reflect a personal image. Few such items survive today, even more so in its nearly complete form. Now the diadem is at the Getty Museum, displayed separately under spotlights. Even behind glass, it's clear this isn't just an object. It once sat on someone's head and belonged to a person, not just an era. None of this turns history upside down, but taken together, it makes you look at it more closely. It's easy to overlook things like this, but if you pause, they stay with you for a long time. Thanks for watching until the end. Goodbye, everyone.